What's up, everybody? Welcome to our newest video episode breaking down Week 3 NFL main slate, DraftKings. We're going to be talking about all the matchups and the guys that you need to be buying, guys you need to be selling for Week 3. So we'll get right into it, and we're going to start off with our first game of the week, Bengals at Bills. So a game where maybe people aren't necessarily attacking it like they should be. I really like this game and a lot of different factors, especially starting at the quarterback position with quarterback Josh Allen. Josh Allen is priced very low right now, $5,900 on DraftKings, and with a lot of the upper tier quarterbacks being priced up higher, I think Josh Allen is a great value. He's a guy that has upside with his running ability to go along with his average depth of attempt. It's very far down the field. So stacking Josh Allen with guys like John Brown and even a Cole Beasley. John Brown's at 5,500. Cole Beasley's at 4,400. They have combined for 50% of the team's total targets. I really like the consolidated target share between those. And I think that in a GPP, stacking Josh Allen with both John Brown and Cole Beasley is a great move to get an edge on the field. Going ahead to the other side of the field, we have the Bengals. The Bengals defensively have struggled immensely this season, which is why obviously I'm super high on guys like Josh Allen and his receivers. But what we also saw, looking at the Bills side of the ball in defense, is they've been struggling against the slot. We saw Jamison Crowder get 17 targets from the slot in their Week 1 matchup against the Jets, which screams of value for Tyler Boyd, who's seen 8 of his 10 targets from the slot just last week. So Tyler Boyd at 6,500 is definitely still a play in both cash and GPP games. John Ross, though, who's been actually the leading receiver in the NFL so far this season, he actually has a very tough matchup this week against Tre'Davious White. So John Ross is a player that I will be fading this week in DraftKings and across all basically DFS formats. There is an opportunity where Damian Willis at $3,000, dirt cheap. He is seeing a lot of routes run and he's seeing a lot of snaps because the Bengals are running the Bengals run 77% of their plays from 11 personnel, which is the 3 receiver set. So Damian Willis is getting a lot of love in terms of just snap share. It hasn't produced yet, but hey, we got to beat. You can't always wait for the production. You got to jump on it before it actually happens. So then goes to the running back position where Joe Mixon has really disappointed fantasy owners across. Anyone that's rostered him on a lineup has been really disappointed, and he's right down now at 5,500, which is crazy low for a running back that has skill sets in both the passing game and the running game and is basically game script proof. So the reason why Joe Mixon could be a potential buyback and potentially a GPP winner this week is because of the fact that, yes, I did mention before, Bengals majority run out of 11 personnel, 77%. And so why that's important is because the Buffalo Bills have allowed 5.6 yards per carry from 11 personnel. That and a 63% success rate. That is second highest in the NFL. So if Joe Mixon at his price, there is a bounce back factor here. Obviously, they've struggled running out of 11, but the Bengals have struggled defending it against 11. So do with it what you will. I know I'm going to be playing Joe Mixon as one of my GPPs at his price. I don't think you can beat it. Moving on to the next game, we have the Lions at the Eagles. The Eagles have a very bad secondary, and that's going to probably be exploited by the Detroit Lions. So you have your outside receivers like Kenny Golladay, 6,600. Price hasn't moved since last week. Marvin Jones, $5,000. Both guys that should be able to produce in this matchup. And if you want to dig deeper, Danny Amendola, 3,800. Another great value that you can exploit against this really, really poor Philadelphia secondary. And Stafford as well, and this is actually kind of why I like Marvin Jones, I think, the most out of the bunch. Stafford's actually increased his aggressiveness downfield. Looking at next-gen stats, he actually was ranked as the 7th most aggressive passer in Week 2. So this is where we're seeing a lot of change in their Detroit Lions offensive philosophy. Yes, they do want to run the ball a lot, but they're also taking more shots downfield and being more aggressive down the field. Going to the Eagles side of the ball, it's Nelson Agholor. It's all about Nelson Agholor and cash. Don't try to, get cute. He's going to get targets. I think that he's a lock in cash games, 3,600. You can't beat his price. But I do think that you don't play him in GPPs just because he's going to have high ownership. So you play Agholor in cash, you move on, you lock him in. But in GPPs, it's an easy pivot. You just pivot off of him to guys like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside or Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins is going to probably fill in that Deshaun Jackson role, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is going to fill into that Alshon Jeffrey role. So there's upside with both of those guys. Mac Hollins can catch a deep pass, or J.J. Arcega-Whiteside could have a large amount of touchdown equity. I like him. He probably has the highest chance of all three to actually catch a touchdown in this game. And Mac Hollins, I could think, definitely has the chance to catch a long pass. But from overall target standpoint, Aguilar is definitely the guy you want to go with, which is why he should be locked into your cash lineups. Jets at Patriots, next matchup here. New England is favored by over 22 points in this matchup, making Sony Michel a play in GPPs. Again, we haven't seen the pass game work, so he's not someone you want to lock into cash. You don't know the game flow. I think we know what the game flow is going to be, but again, anything can happen any given Sunday. Turnovers and things, division opponents. Don't try Michel in cash. Just don't do it. Play him in GPPs because he should be able to smash, and he has a three touchdown ceiling definitely in this matchup for sure. You can, again, play Brady in cash. He's at a good price, and he's going to probably smash at home against the Jets, against their secondary. It's very poor. And obviously, we've lost Antonio Brown. So the consolidated targets are a little bit better, and the prices for both Edelman and Josh Gordon were made with Antonio Brown still factoring in. So Edelman at $6,300 and Gordon at $5,400 are both priced relatively low based on the fact that, okay, now they're the top two guys. Philip Dorsett is also an interesting prospect here as well because he is the third receiver on the three receiver sets, which the Patriots have been running a lot of without really any tight end of consequence. That's really been taking a lot of the field. So they're not running really too many two tight end sets. Again, the Patriots defense at 3,800 is again in play. We saw what they did last week. That 35 point performance was insane. So we definitely want to be able to have them in our exposures for sure. The Jet side, the only option really here is Le'Veon Bell. He's at $7,000 on DraftKings, and I think that he's a guy that if you're making a heavy Patriots stack, you throw back with Le'Veon Bell because he should be able to. He saw last week Luke Falk, the quarterback for the New York Jets, was peppering Le'Veon Bell with targets. So I do think that not Luke Falk. Don't play Luke Falk. I do think that Le'Veon Bell is still an option as a guy that's still going to receive the majority of touches. He just has a very low touchdown equity if the Jets just don't find themselves in the red zone. But he could catch a lot of catches. PPR, definitely someone you want to monitor. Raiders at Vikings. Dalvin Cook. Press in, lock button in cash games. Dalvin Cook. He showed us last week that he is game skip proof. The Vikings fell behind quickly, and yet he still was able to produce. This game more dictates that the Vikings are going to be winning and leading in this game because of their favorite at home against the Oakland Raiders. I'm not afraid of this Raiders defense. Lock Dalvin Cook in your cash game lineups. On the Raiders side, Tyrell Williams' price has gone up, $5,600. So with his price going up, I want to go ownership down. I'm not going to be playing him. He's going to get the Xavier Rhodes treatment, so I'm not really going to focus on Tyrell Williams. But an interesting pivot off of, again, looking at the Aguilar price, we're looking for guys that we can pivot off of in GPPs, is Hunter Renfrow. So Hunter Renfrow is $3,700 on GPP in DraftKings, which is $100 more than Nelson Aguilar. But he's a perfect pivot off of a guy like Aguilar. Again, so Minnesota's primary slot cornerback, Mackenzie Alexander, has dislocated his elbow, and that forced him to miss last week, and it's going to force him to miss more time. So for the time being, Jaron Kearse is the team solution for the slot cornerback, and he's already been targeted 13 times this season. Renfrow is the primary slot receiver on the Raiders, and I do expect him to see more targets in this matchup. We saw his snaps and targets uptick from week 1 to week 2, so I'd like that continue to that trend going into week 3. Ravens at Chiefs. Probably the highlight of the slate. Everyone's going to be talking about this game. You got Lamar Jackson, you got Patrick Mahomes. It should be a fun matchup to watch for sure. And I'm approaching this kind of differently. A lot of people are flocking towards, obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs receivers. We saw what Patrick Mahomes did last week with his really big plays of these guys, 40-yard pass plays, tons of air yards. At 52, we're at a 52 total, according to the FanDuel Sportsbooks. But here's my approach to this game. So I'm trying to kind of get off of those Chiefs receivers. I know it's crazy what I'm trying to do. But, you want to attack it with a kind of contrarian if you're going to use this as a game to stack in tournaments. Flocking towards more of that running back production. Right now, Damian Williams is out. So we have McCoy, who's questionable, and Darwin Thompson. So, again, these guys, depending on how it shakes out, if McCoy's out, okay, Thompson's going to get a lot of ownership. So, again, if that's the case, you want to just start him. He's at $3,000. He's dirt cheap. Just put him in basically across every lineup. I don't see why you wouldn't do it at his price. So you would definitely want to play Darwin Thompson, but I would focus more on the running back. So basically, the reason I'm thinking about that is because Patrick Mahomes has actually struggled immensely in the red zone this season. He's actually down. Last year, the Chiefs were the number one team in the red zone. But this year, the Chiefs are actually ranked 27th in red zone efficiency. Mahomes is throwing all of his touchdowns outside of the red zone, which is crazy to think, but is something that he can do. But I'm not saying that's something that's necessarily sustainable. I don't want to say regression with Patrick Mahomes because I'm going to be eating my words probably because he does stuff that's just not real. But playing the odds, playing the statistics, that's what we have to do here. That's why I like the running backs because running the ball, though not efficient anywhere on the field, it is actually more efficient in the red zone. So I do think that if the Chiefs don't end up scoring, a bunch of 40-yard touchdowns, that's going to hurt the receivers, and I think that it's going to be the running backs on the Chiefs that actually get a lot of touchdown equity in this game. It would not surprise me at all to see a guy like McCoy or Darwin Thompson score multiple touchdowns in this game and then kind of leave those receivers out in the dust where it's like, okay, they had yards, but if they don't score, that's the key to winning is touchdowns in these GPP formats. So that's how I'm attacking this game. Again, then looking on the other side, you have the Ravens. Lamar Jackson's cheaper than Patrick Mahomes and may have a safer floor. I'm going to be targeting Lamar Jackson in my cash and GPP games, especially as a quarterback, $7,000. He's priced up, but you have such a safe floor with him and his running ability. The Ravens lead the NFL in rushing yards per game. It's over 220 rushing yards, so I'm going to be going with Lamar Jackson. He just offers something that not every quarterback offers, so I do like him in this matchup, especially in the plus matchup against a weak Chiefs defense. But if you're trying to go contrarian with this Ravens and kind of stacking, Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews are going to be the chalkier guys, whereas Willie Snead and Miles Boykin. Snead is at 4,200. Miles Boykin is at 3,000 this week. And what we're going to look at here is Snead actually led the Ravens in targets and receptions in their weekly matchup last year between the Ravens and Chiefs. So that's one thing to look at and consider. The next thing to also look at is Miles Boykin saw a significant increase in work in routes run. He actually tripled his routes run in week 2 from week 1. So again, another thing to just consider as you're putting your lineups together. Okay, how can I get a piece of this game, but maybe at a lower ownership because this game is going to be heavily targeted. So that's kind of my look at some of these guys in this game for sure for week 3 DFS. Next game here, Falcons at the Colts. We have two running backs that are priced relatively low. Marlon Mack at 5,900 is a really good price as a 3-down skill set back. He's actually run more routes this year than Nyheim Hines. He's just not getting targeted. This could be the game where that changes. I really like Marlon Mack. This could be the game where he actually does get targeted in the passing game. The Falcons just funnel targets to the running back position. We see it all the time. It's been like this for a number of years. So continue to have confidence in Mack across all formats. As long as he's healthy. He should be good to go. He has calf injury, but he practiced on Friday, so he should be good to go. On the Falcons side, so Ito Smith at 3,700 is very interesting to me. The Colts defense has been ripped up by running backs. They've allowed the third most fantasy points to the running back position so far in 2019. And Devontae Freeman has just been dust this year. He has not been good. He's averaged 2.2 yards per carry compared to Ito Smith's 6.3 yards per carry. Ito Smith has been described as electric, running the ball, whereas Freeman has not looked good at all. So it may just be, okay, Smith is running more on third downs and third and long, so he's given more space. But if that's the case, then it's going to be Ito Smith that's going to be ripping up this defense and not necessarily Devontae Freeman. So if you're looking for not only a good low ownership play, but a good matchup play, I do like Ito Smith as an option there. And their snap share is getting closer. 55% to 45% is the split from Ito Smith and Devontae Freeman over the past 2 weeks. So who knows? Ito Smith may be taking over as that starting running back as we enter into week 4. So stay tuned for that, guys. Moving on to our next game, Broncos at Packers. This game, is a very interesting matchup. Not someone I'm going to be talking a lot. I like the Packers defense. They're at 3,400. They're definitely a good price against Denver and Joe Flacco. Anyone playing Joe Flacco is always a good matchup. I'm not really too much into Aaron Rodgers. He is at home at 6,100. And the Broncos have not faced a legitimate quarterback this year. So, no, not much high ownership on Rodgers because it doesn't scream to be a shootout. And we saw Rodgers kind of, start off really hot last week. And again, he definitely should be someone that you could also consider at a low ownership because I think the matchup is pretty good, actually. On the road, the Broncos allowed last season 1.8 passing touchdowns per game. On the Green Bay Packers side, if you're looking to someone to stack with Rodgers, it would be Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 4,300. He's got a nice matchup on the right side against Isaac Yiadom, cornerback for the Denver Broncos. And Valdez-Scantling we've seen him, he's a big play guy, and we haven't really seen a big play yet from him. So this would be the game where he could blow up for you guys in playing, DFS this week. On the other side, Manuel Sanders is just too cheap at 4,800, and Cortland Sutton is another guy that's a cheap pivot off of some of these other receivers. Jair Alexander is most likely going to shadow cover Emmanuel Sanders, which could be tough. So Sutton could become the best play. Sutton has ran the same amount of routes as Sanders this year, and Sutton has 14 to Sanders' 19 targets. The touchdown equity has been really going to Sanders, so he's the one that's caught all the touchdowns. But Sutton's numbers aren't really that bad. He went over 100 yards week 1. He had 70 receiving yards in week 2, so Sutton is someone definitely to consider as the Broncos receiver. Now moving along to another fun and exciting game, we have the Dallas Cowboys against the Miami Dolphins. So again, another game that projects to be a total blowout. I'm still going to watch. I think it'll be fun to watch. I mean, who loves a good bloodbath? You know what I'm saying? So people are worried about Dak and Zeke and about, oh no, like they're going to be ahead by too much and they're going to rest their starters, and that's nonsense. Total nonsense. I looked at the data, the stats for this specific situation. Looked at the Cowboys and how they did winning games by 21 or more. There's 4 games where that's happened in the Dak and Zeke era, I'll say. And in those games, you've had Ezekiel Elliott average 20 rushing attempts for 106 yards and 1.75 rushing touchdowns. Those are pretty good numbers, okay? I think Zeke's going to be fine. So lock him into cash. And then, honestly, if you just want to have, this is the highest implied point total on the week. So you just want to have the touchdown equity. So if you play Dak and you play Zeke, there's a chance that you're going to somehow get all the touchdowns. Whether Dak is throwing a touchdown or Zeke is rushing a touchdown, those are the 2 most likely outcomes of games happening. And that way, Dak can't steal a Zeke rushing touchdown. So I think the safest play in cash games is honestly just playing Zeke and Dak, stacking them together. And then I would even throw in, if you need to save money, play Jason Witten. Jason Witten has done really well in blowouts, statistically, and the same other receivers that have done really well in the blowouts for the Cowboys in the past has been the slot receivers. So Randall Cobb becomes an option there as well. So 3,700 Jason Witten, Randall Cobb's 4,600. Jason Witten's tough because there's a really other good matchup with Greg Olsen at 3,700. So Jason Witten is actually probably a cool player in GPPs to play. To get off the Greg Olsen chalk at 3,700. Jason Witten is a guy. Or if you really want to do a DAX stack with Jason Witten for that touchdown equity. As for Miami, it's the factory of sadness, the new factory of sadness, or the factory of tankness. Miami, Preston Williams is really the only guy. So again, another receiver at 3,700. He and Josh Rosen showed a lot of chemistry together in the preseason. That's when Preston Williams looked best, was when Josh Rosen was playing the most. So I think that if you're going to throw it back, you're going to do another dominating Cowboys attack, I would say Preston Williams is the receiver you want to come back with. I will say that the Dallas Cowboys defense/special teams is kind of a trap play in this game. So $4,300, they're the most expensive defense on the slate, and it's concerning because they're have not produced in 2 good matchups they've already had this year. They played the Redskins and they played the Giants, and they scored a total of 7 fantasy points in those 2 games against teams that, you'd expect, hey, a defense is a good streamer against these 2 teams. So I would hesitant to be paying up for the Dallas Cowboys this week. And I think a lot of people are going to pay up for them because if you didn't play the Patriots defense last week, you felt like an idiot, myself included. You felt like an idiot because you missed out on a 35-point plus affair, and it's recency bias. People are going to be like, I got to pay up for defense. That's how you win. But that's not really the case. Usually you want to pay down at defense, so get off the chalk here. Cowboys defense is a fade in week 3. Moving on to our next game, going on to some of the later games. We have Giants at the Buccaneers as the next game. Actually, no, we'll do Cardinals first. We got Larry in the back here. We'll do Cardinals first. So we have the Cardinals and the Carolina Panthers. So this game is going to have a lot of plays in it probably. The Cardinals are leading the NFL in plays per game, basically, and the Carolina Panthers are second in it. So that may come down slightly with Kyle Allen getting the start at quarterback instead of Cam Newton. But again, there's insane value at these receiver positions. Because the Cardinals run so many 4-receiver sets, 64% of their plays have been from 10 personnel in the first 2 weeks. So guys like Larry Fitzgerald, 5,100. Christian Kirk, 5,000. Damiere Byrd, 3,000. Hashtag also a revenge game for Damiere Byrd. Keep that in mind. And then on the Carolina side, Curtis Samuel, 4,800. DJ Moore, 5,900. Like, attacking these receivers in this game because there's going to be volume. There's a lot of routes run. They're on the field. They're not there to block. Like, these teams are throwing the ball. So I like a lot of these receivers. I like mixing up my Fitzgerald and Kirk shares in exposures in cash games. So I'll do one cash with Fitzgerald, one cash with Kirk. I think they're both solid locks. I like Fitzgerald a little bit better. Fitzgerald's just usually better at home anyway, and they're playing at home. So and he's only $100 cheaper than Kirk. And Damiere Byrd is the guy you want to play. He's a fast receiver, explosive. So he is someone that I would target in GPPs at his dirt price cheap of $3,000. You're not going to see a $3,000 receiver that sees the field more than Damiere Byrd. So keep that in mind for sure. That's what I like from this game. And then I mentioned Greg Olsen. He's in a smash spot at 3,700. The Cardinals defense has basically just funneled targets towards the tight end position. They've been terrible. They got smashed by Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson. Two guys that, haven't really even established themselves as elite talents in this league. And Greg Olsen has been doing this for a while. So I would assume that Kyle Allen would be on line of getting Greg Olsen involved. And yes, that's not an assumption. If Greg Olsen busts, that's the reason why. It's because it's not Cam in there. So that's why I don't think Greg Olsen's necessarily great playing GPPs, because there's a chance he could bust. But I think in cash, I think you got to go with him. The matchup is too good, and he's getting targets. So I think you got to go with Greg Olsen. And his price is cheap, $3,700. So even if he does class a bust, he won't necessarily kill your lineup as a low-end tight end player. Moving along to the next game. So I mentioned it before. I previewed it slightly. Giants at Buccaneers. So the Giants at the Buccaneers, we have Danny Dimes. Danny Dimes is getting the start. Oh, man. Eli Manning era is over. So the Giants, I think, are actually in line for a good game in this matchup. Tampa Bay's defense has been playing well, but Devin White, the middle linebacker for the Buccaneers, is going to miss this game. And the Giants have been running the ball super effectively this year, averaging 7.6 yards per attempt, which ranks number 1 in the NFL. So go with Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to have lower ownership for some reason. Blows my mind, but he's going to be lower owned because of all the other running backs on the slate, and with Barkley being the highest owned player, Barkley being the highest priced player. So Barkley is definitely someone you definitely want to still consider. Evan Ingram, again, similar to the Greg Olsen phenomenon. You have a guy who's gotten a lot of targets, but it's a new quarterback. So we don't necessarily know that it's going to be Daniel Jones throwing it to Evan Ingram. We don't know that. We just don't know. And at 5,200, he's more expensive, so he's going to hurt you at the other positions. So Evan Ingram is tough. And again, his matchup is really good, but I would still err on the side of caution here, and I would still go with Greg Olsen, probably over Evan Ingram, unless I'm doing a giant stack with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. And then moving to Sterling Shepard, he's back on the field as well. He's a little pricier at 4,900, so unless you are doing a Giants stack, I'm not so sure I would play him. And then keep an eye on the Giants receivers. Benny Fowler at 3,700, Cody Latimer at 3,800. These are the guys that Daniel Jones was targeting in the preseason. Fowler's dealing with a hamstring injury. Cody Latimer's at 3,800, and he is out. It looks like he's actually going to miss this game now that I look at this again. So if Benny Fowler plays, look at him as a cheap receiver at 3,700. I know that 3,700 is like the money. We got all these receivers at 3,700 that I love. So a lot of you can do at 3,700. I guarantee one of these 3,700 receivers is going to have a good game. So we'll make sure I'll cover that in the recap article. And also, keep in mind that the article that I'm talking about, or kind of, the slate that I'm reviewing, so all of this is posted up on windailysports.com. You can check out my article there. Go to my profile. It's called the NFL Week 3 DFS Main Slate Preview. So you can go check it out, see everything written out. There's more information there that I'm talking about now, so you definitely want to check that out. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's Mike Evans' week. It has to be Mike Evans. This is definitely the week that he's going to bounce back. He's priced cheaper than Chris Godwin, and if someone told him that, I bet he'd be like, nah, that's not happening this week. I'm going to go get my salary bumped back up. So I think it's a bounce back for Jameis Winston, who's at 5,400, very cheap. And the Giants have given the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. So that's a pretty easy play, honestly, Jameis Winston. He's in a really good spot at home. I really like Jameis Winston this week to distribute to a Winston. You want to go simple stack, even in cash games. Winston to Evans, I think, is something that can work out really, really well this week. Evans also has had a great record against Big Blue. He's averaged 12.3 targets, 6.3 receptions, and 112 receiving yards against the Big Blue in his last 3 games against them. So go with Mike Evans if you're going to pay up a receiver. 3 more games left, guys. Steelers at 49ers. James Washington shower narrative. with Mason Rudolph. They were preseason darlings. They went to college together. And James Washington is getting more playing time because Dante Moncrief has feet for hands. So James Washington is someone to definitely consider as a low-end receiver, again at 3,500. So those sub 4K receivers, there's a lot of good options this week. And then on the tight end side for the 49ers, George Kittle, 5,600 is very underpriced. I do think I may lean more towards a Zach Ertz, actually. I didn't mention him when I was talking about the Eagles, but Ertz is just a little more expensive, and there's just more targets for Ertz. So I would probably lean into Ertz, but I don't mind getting some exposure to Kittle as well. Deebo Samuel at 4,500 is also emerging as a primary cast option, but again, there are more 4K, sub 4K receivers I like a little bit more than Deebo Samuel. The Saints at Seahawks. Alvin Kamara is screaming by in GPPs. Everyone's going to be off of him because everybody was on him last week and he totally sucked. I was on him all over him, and luckily I was still able to cash. But Kamara, he's an unreally talented player, and with a week of practice in the new offense, in a new scheme, a new offensive strategy with Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill, I really think that Kamara could shock a lot of people this week. So I think that he's a perfect guy to play in GPPs if you're going to pay up at the running back position. On the Seahawks side, the Saints have had a lot of trouble covering these like down the field threat receivers. They've allowed the fifth most fantasy points to the position so far in 2019. So I like DK Metcalf, 4,700, and Tyler Lockett at 6,200 as receivers to target. Texans at the Chargers. Austin Eckler, 7,200, stone cold lock again for the running back spot. Like, they're just not pricing him up high enough based on his usage, and I know people may be tempted because the value of him is kind of going down every week, but like they're still not pricing. I mean, he should be in the 8,000. He should be at least $8,000. Like, he's getting the same workload usage as guys like McCaffrey, as guys like Barkley, and yet he is losing. He's not priced as high as those guys. So thank DraftKings. Hey, I'll play Eckler. Play him in cash. Play him in GPPs. There's no Melvin Gordon still, so you just got to keep playing him until they make him $9,000 basically at this point. Mike Williams, I really like in this matchup. So $4,900. Mike Williams, we kind of are forgetting that. So Hunter Henry went down, and everyone was excited about Mike Williams, but then Mike Williams was basically like hurt last week, and then nobody played him, and then he actually like had a pretty decent outing last week. But it's just the touchdown equity that he gets. I think Mike Williams could be a potential like pivot play off of Austin Eckler. So if you don't play Eckler, you could play Mike Williams. I mean, Mike Williams, of guys under $5,000, of guys that can catch like 3 touchdowns in a game, that's Mike Williams. And against the Houston Texans defense, that is not very good. That is not a good secondary. There's no Honey Badger there anymore. I really like Mike Williams in this matchup. And then Will Fuller as well, bringing it back, also at $4,900. He disappointed last week. I know we were high on him, but get back into him. His average his average depth of target is 24.3. So he's getting the air yards. This is a game that could really shoot out between the Texans and Chargers. Watson's at 6,400 and Rivers is at 5,800. Pretty easy stacks to set up too. An easy game to figure out who the ball is kind of going to go to. So a game I really like to look at in GPPs as well. So that's going to do it though for us guys. We're going to wrap up here. That is your breakdown of the NFL Week 3 main slate. Good luck to everybody, and we'll be back for Week 4 next week.